Coaches and parents, this episode's for you. Summer conditioning camps coming up. Here are the top 6 things you need to think about when setting up your athlete for success that you must have in each of these programs. So stay tuned for episode 48 of the Strength of America podcast.
The Strength of America podcast.
Hi guys, welcome back. Bob Davis.
Bobby Davis.
Appreciate you guys being with us. Yes, we're about 4 weeks out now before summer conditioning starts at camps all over the country. If you're looking for athletic performance camps, we just wanted to give you some things and questions you should be asking ahead of time to kind of find out what are the best things that are going to help your athlete, give them the advantage for that next fall coming into it. And I think the first thing we want to talk about is what do they do at the beginning of camp? Are they laying the groundwork to help them so that they can be successful on day one? One of the things we do with our programs is once you're signed up and get into the program, we'll send out initially a fuel chart. We have all of our athletes fill out a 1-day fuel chart, and they must bring in on day one. The main focus of that is we need to teach these kids how to eat and hydrate. We're going to go into that kind of as our 6th phase at the end of this, so make sure you stay tuned to the details on how we do that. But I think when they show up that first week, it's about testing, evaluating, and seeing where they're at instead of just, okay, it's summer conditioning, let's start getting crazy. So I think one of the first things that we do is we always test their speed, their 10, 20, and 40. We also test their vertical jump, their broad jump. We check the pro agility, the 5, 10, 5. And then we check their weight and waist measurements. We want to see where they're at, progressing at the end. The goal isn't to get the skinny waistline or 6-pack. It's about energy is where we're trying to teach them how to eat. But the byproduct is showing them afterwards how they've really progressed physically on top of all that hard work. But another part of it is, of course, the weight training. Those kids that are 7th grade on up that take part in weight training programs, we need to see where they're at. They need to have an idea of it. But we also have to see about their movement. And we see some potential problems that we look for are who potentially has problems with the knees. What's going on with shoulders? Are they baseball players, swimmers? Something they need to have a lot of shoulder problems that we need to address and take care of. So we don't just get in and let's, okay, pound the bench and squats and go nuts. We want to see where potential problems are, past injuries. Those are all the initial evaluation that you need to check and make sure that your performance program is actually doing. Otherwise, you're doing disservice to those kids. What are some of the things that we look for in that first week as that one comes to commit?
Well, the first week, again, just like Bob said, usually day one we're running into testing. We're just getting those kids acquainted with us. We're getting some basic markers and data. That way we know pre and post when we get to testing them. We can also give them some physical feedback so they can check how their progress was when they went through the camp. Outside of that, it's great for people to see the physical, but we also want to get feedback from parents and families that, wow, out in the field of play, we're moving much better, or they're really standing out amongst the other kids. Outside of that, now we're starting to progress into when we're getting in the weight room, teaching them how the flow of the weight room should be. What are the exercises? What should they look like? How does the system work? And then after that, we're starting to break into some bare bones on our speed and agility days, our plyo day where we're working on jumps, hops, bounds, and our conditioning day, kind of to lay out what this stuff's going to look like. So it's not to necessarily kill them off the bat. It's to kind of get them acquainted with what the 7-week program is going to look like, where we're going to start, the main things we really want to put the emphasis on to make sure that they're understanding. We lay the foundation of, look, this is how it should look, this is how it should feel, and now we want to replicate that as the camp goes on and progress and get better and better.
Because we'll have kids that first week that know the system. Where they come into the program, we're sending out information, like I said, on the fuel chart, what they should eat, how they're doing. So they get in there week 1, they're ready to go. We can start that level. And some of those kids, we will start up at a little faster pace where they're at. But that's what the evaluation the first couple of days and the first 4 days is about, is not only seeing, okay, they have great speed, they're here, they need to work on their quick reaction or power, but how they're jumping and landing. If they're jumping and landing and they're landing straight-legged, or knees rolling forward, excessive rolling inside, or we notice one ankle is stiffer than another, that's going to start causing problems everywhere. So then we've got some additional homework that we'll give those kids. They need to work on daily to get ready, and then we'll adjust their program based on their performance where they're at. So that's a must. Got to see where they're at, give them a foundation for success, and then we move in. Now, once we get to the next phase, The next part we're really looking at is speed training. And I can tell you, when we started speed training, or I did 30 years ago before Bobby, but our thing was specific to how they run, what their acceleration is, how they start, how they're moving, what their form is like. And it's not just track for the 40, but the goal is as they go through that they actually get faster as they move. They're not reaching top speed in 5 yards and they're maintaining after that. We've got to keep accelerating. And how do we do that? Where's the body lean at? Where's the body positioning? What are they doing with the feet, the legs, extending, pushing the ground away? All those components, that's speed training. Speed training is not just running up and down and throwing a parachute behind it. There's a lot of specifics that we've got to get into. What are a couple of drills or things in speed drills, for example, that we work with on these kids?
Some of the stuff can be very basic. Kind of just take a step back into thinking about how we're setting up our drills. When I'm really focusing on working on an athlete's linear speed, a few things that really come to mind. We're talking about mechanics. So I'm trying to make sure that we're understanding posture and position, and we're understanding what should be doing what job. So my postures think about staying zipped up tall, staying tight, so my arms and my legs can move on their own around, having a good stable position. Outside of that, in the arms, you're thinking about chin to cheek. We're just trying to get in a nice even flow, think about staying relaxed up top. And the legs, we're thinking about driving knee up, toe up, and trying to work on pulling those laces high to the sky. So some drills we may work on right there, maybe something as simple as a wall drill leaning up, understanding where body position should be, how to keep this stiff as the legs get where they need to and strike back where they need to. It could be a march, high knees, different things like that.
Yeah, sometimes we bring in sleds, sometimes it's a harness drill. I mean, there's a variance of things that we do. And you can do the same drill for speed work, for power work, pulling into it, but it's resistance and the number of reps and things that make a difference. So running them into the ground isn't speed work. It's a technique, the movement, teaching them all the basics of, where most of the kids, they get through it, they say, well, I didn't realize there was so much involved on learning how to run. Yeah. There's a lot of components, and you learn the basics. Man, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So you got the first one, which is just getting them, set them up for success, understanding the basics of what they need to do, how the system is laid out. Part two now is our speed. Now, the third component you need to have in a great athletic performance that we look at has got to be power training. And power is really combining our speed and our strength. We put that together, and that's what produces power. But without good control, you can have a powerful athlete that's sitting on the sidelines because their reaction is terrible, or when they land, they're falling off, or with more power without proper mobility. That's when we're blowing out knees and causing problems. So the power training is essential to it. And I know years ago, what we thought was producing power or speed, we're running those stadiums. But you're getting power. If we're going up that stadium, up that hill, we're only talking about 5 or 6 contacts with that outside leg. We're not doing stadiums where we do 100 steps all the way to the top and producing speed and power. Then it's a stamina workout. So sets, reps, the resistance, the angle, all of that makes a big difference. And power, part of that is, yes, vertical jump, broad jump work that we're going into, frog jump, could be sleds, could be medicine balls that we work into.
Could be bounds, some different things of those natures.
Yeah, and that's where a bounding example, we see bounding and stuff all the time. But if they're landing and there's a pause before they move off, there's no power, there's no reaction. We've got to make sure we're making contact, exploding where we need to go. That's power. That's combining that speed and that strength. Without that, all we have is just strong or just brute force. Yeah. But it's not going to make much difference for them.
And as we're talking about right there, especially thinking about power, when we're thinking about some of these movements, not only to understand and teach athletes, okay, when you're going in that sprint, we have to think about attacking the ground down and back. We have to focus on how much we're able to put in the ground to get us moving forward. So that's where the jumps and bounds and hops teach these athletes how to push the ground away, how to strike the ground, how to stay in position. But also on top of that, once they start to progress and they start to go into multiple jumps, hops, bounds, now it's teaching them, okay, we want to try to prevent being a tomato hitting the ground with our foot, and we want to think more like a bouncy ball. So now we're trying to train a little bit of stiffness so they can be reactive. So that's kind of how we think about progressing some of our exercises as we go through the camp and what we're starting to look at. So we'll start with that base there and then just start to work on out.
Part of that kind of goes into, those of you who've seen these videos for years and things or been to our camps, the vertical jump, for example, we teach these kids about creating power and moving off to it. We don't think about just jumping, because almost always when we teach kids to jump, the first thing they do is their knees buckle, they start swaying to move up instead of just pushing to create that power. So they hear from me, Hulk smash. Tell them what happens to the Hulk when he's taken off on the ground. he's not just jumping. He's pushing the ground away. He's destroyed that ground. It's crumbled when he takes off. And that's what we've got to see. We see some kids that they jump, and boy, the grass hardly bends when they leave the ground. We need it to just explode and push forward. That helps them get to where they need to go and keep pushing. So giving certain cues make a huge difference.
Yeah.
So power, phase 3. Fourth thing you need to have is agility. I mean, agility is the top thing that we can take kids that may not be as fast as somebody else, but if they can have a quick reaction and move with power, force in a quick cut or get to that opening, man, they've got a huge advantage on somebody else that might be faster. For example, we see some fast kids out there that never work on deceleration or change of direction. They have a hard time stopping and changing because they are so fast, and nobody's worked on that part of decelerating and changing. We take that track athlete that's always running and doesn't do any deceleration work for that 8 to 12 week season, and they come in right after that, even if they're a football player before, those kids have a hard time changing direction right at the beginning of camp. So the basics that we need to keep in as essential is huge, and that's where our even slower kids, they can have a quick change of direction, make moves all day on the fast kids. So we want those fast kids, as soon as they learn the system, man, they're unstoppable out there.
Yeah, that's great. And something that we've started to incorporate a little bit more as new information's come out, just networking with different coaches, is not only just working those cone drills. We have to first start with the bare bones. Some people get rid of that. I am still a firm believer that they definitely have their place in it being a big teaching tool, allowing athletes to work and know when they're going to change. I think it's a little safer for the athletes. I think it allows them to not think so much up top and allow the technique work to come into a little bit. But then after we go through the cone drills to work on, okay, taking our steps, using the outside leg to drop and push the ground away, making sure we're getting angles, we're getting body position. Then from there, we start to progress out the drills where, they may be a cat and mouse drill where they're trying to tag their opponent or they're trying to mirror their opponent and what they're doing, or they may be reacting off us, calling out a color, a number, or just calling out right, left, or a movement. And now they're getting more of that reaction-based stimulus, just like they would in sport.
And the last part, kind of putting into that agility, is, man, cleats and things are fine for some of these drills that we put into, but one of the first things that we do with kids is we'll put them in tennis shoes running these drills for two main reasons. Number one, with cleats, they're going to grip a little better so they can move a little quicker out there. But if they have poor mechanics with cleats and they make contact with a straight leg or they're pivoting incorrectly, they're the ones that are going to blow those knees out. But if you put those tennis shoes on them and they make bad contact with the straight leg, what's happening? They fall, they go down. That they learn, it's instant feedback. So we teach them drop the hips, make hard traction, explode in the new direction. Now they can do that drill with tennis shoes. Now you put the cleats on with great mechanics. Man, that hole they can get to in a heartbeat. That's what we want to do, is teach them that. But we always periodically, boom, pull back, let's get the tennis shoes, just to make sure we're not losing that. And I highly advise, getting a football, soccer season, man, have a practice day or something that goes out, tell them tennis shoes only. Let's see how they play and how they move. They're going to see right away who's relying on it, who potentially is going to blow out their knees later, because you didn't focus on the mechanics, basically on how they drop, hold position, and create power.
Yeah, that's great. And I think when you're watching those kids, as you ask them to get back in their shoes, allow some reps to go through, you'll start to see the kids that there's going to be a little bit of a period that the kids that are understanding the mechanics, or who are a little bit of the better athletes and can respond, they have a couple bad reps, and then after that, they're going to start to clean that up. So their brain is now telling their body where to get to, and they're going to be the better movers. The kids that don't have that, they're the kids that you want to really say, okay, we've done this drill 5 times, you're not showing any improvement. This is an area that we need to take time to work on with you. So
yeah, that's homework. That's great. The fifth stage that we take a look at our camps is our strength training. Now, like we said before, we typically will start our kids in the weight training part from 7th grade on up. We've had some youngers go into it, but our primary folks, Bobby and a lot of our kids we worked with through the years, young guys, 8 years old and up, are doing it. Beneficially, strength training is great for them. However, you've got to make sure you have the supervision to handle that age group in that part, because you don't want anybody hurt. Now, our 7th grade on up, we'll do our 4 days a week of speed agility training, and then 4 days a week of weight training also. The kids that are the younger ones, typically our 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, we still incorporate our strength training with our body weight, maybe weight pushes, maybe sleds, maybe med balls, maybe partner work, wheelbarrow thing. There's lots of strength components, but strength is essential for them to continue to get better. Even if they're not producing the high levels of testosterone to put on the size, doesn't matter. Our young guys, and Bobby, young guy, little stuff going in, wasn't big, but man, he was strong. And those athletes that can be strong and dominant on that plate. Now they combine speed, power with that strength, and they're unstoppable on there. So strength training is essential. And again, I know there's still, which amazes me after 30 years of doing this and my 4 years in Nebraska prior to that too. Even the study we helped put together back in '88 was primarily on strength training in kids, and it's beneficial. The Pediatric Associations are behind it. The Olympic Committee's behind it. There's so many, if they endorse, it's great. That doesn't mean you just grab the weights and go nuts in the garage with dad's stuff. How you do it is key. The number of sets, the reps, the body positioning. Bench, we think it's all simple, but how your body's positioned there, where your feet are, where your head is at, can be a make or break deal.
Yeah, that's great. I think for athletes, they have to understand that sometimes we may be putting them in jeopardy if we take a kid that is just very unstable, very weak, and we run them through all these types of drills. They might not be stable enough. Let's say I take a kid that's just really weak, and is not ready for a bound, and I start taking them through some bounding and a ton of reps there. Their knees and their bodies are going to start to break down just because they're not able to handle those impacts. They're not able to reduce the force as they come into it. They're not able to kind of absorb it and reapply it as they go. So we have to understand that if we want athletes to really excel in speed and agility, or on their field of play to be faster, make faster cuts, be able to react and get to a ball or whatever it may be, they have to be strong and stable in order to produce that force. We talked earlier about how am I going to get forward? Okay, I'm going to get forward by getting in a good lean, and I have to put as much force as I can in that ground back and behind me to get moving forward out fast. And we can't be weak to do that. If I'm weak, I'm not going to get out very far. So we have to understand, don't be so nervous about the strength training. Make sure there is a progression and regression, and we're keeping in mind the training age of kids that are coming in, whether they're new and not very novice, they're not very coordinated, or if they're pretty good, okay, now we can have a little bit separate things going on there for those kids.
Yeah, and that's where our strength training has been. That's been the key foundation for us with Strength of America since '89, because we want these kids to be able to handle the stress of sport. And if they're not strong, they won't. And that's where they have problems. So if you've got that sport that's baseball year-round, or it's football year-round, or it's volleyball year-round, and you're not doing some kind of a strength program because you're worried about them doing that, you're doing them a disservice. You're really opening them up to an injury that really could have been prevented with proper strength training, almost always. Yes, there's mobility. Yes, there's so many factors. But that's the idea. That's why we're trying to give you this list of what to ask for, so you get the right program in there. But, those that say, well, they shouldn't be lifting, they should just do push-ups. Well, some of you would take a look at the push-ups. We see some practices where these kids will do 20, 30, 40, 50, 80 push-ups in a practice. And how many can they do mechanically correct? Yeah. Their shoulders in the right position, their bodies are there, their arms are right, their body's not bowing, they're not stressing their back. They can only do 3 really good push-ups, but you're having to do 10 and 20. That's much worse than putting them under a 20-pound bar and they can do 15 reps. In good form on a bench press.
We're not creating good movers, we're creating compensators then to get the task done.
Exactly. Your body's going to find a way to get through it, but if you're overstressing joints that you don't need to, and this is never where you should have an injury, is in the weight room. It's how you're doing the mechanics. So yes, we say 10, 11, 12, it's great, no problems physically for them to do it, but you also don't put them in a room with 40 other guys that are all 16, 17 years old, and they get lost and you can't keep an eye on what's going on. So that's an essential part. So strength training is real important for them to do it. So, but make sure, what are they doing? How many people are watching? What's going on in that program? What's their progression level? And even in that program, we can have guys and girls that are 14 to 17 years old in that weight room. That doesn't mean they're all doing the same program. We have the same base, but I've got different expectations depending on how they work in there, how good listens they are. I've had some 12, 13-year-olds that are better listeners than my 17-year-olds.
Yeah.
So I adjust accordingly and make that adjustment.
Yeah, that's why we're thinking about training age, not the actual age of the athletes. I may have a kid that's 8th grade that listens really well, is very in tune with their body, great athlete, and they can crush a back squat better than maybe I have a high school kid that doesn't listen very well, is not very coordinated. So you just have to understand that. And we don't have to overhaul the program and create something very simple or complex and creative. It's just maybe monitoring, changing the tempo, changing the implement they're using, or just simply having them work in a higher rep scheme so that way they get the time to learn and get the repetitions. So,
yeah, and I think that's, and just on a side note, for those of you thinking about the weight training, what happens, we see it all the time. We do quick feedback. The kids don't ever want to lose weight, drop weight on what they're doing. They typically want to add more weight. We've got ideas of what they need to do, and they have to follow that. We see kids start going up in the weight and their form is wrong. one of the first things I'll do is drop the weight less than what it was programmed for. We say, hey, it doesn't matter. You went above what it was supposed to. Your form was incorrect, so now we go less until you can show me you've got good form and you pay attention to the mechanics.
Yeah.
Once we do that, we're going up. But if you don't have the mechanics, they're not going to focus on it. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
We'll drop you down lower. It's okay.
You got to earn the right.
Yeah, you exactly do. So strength training is awesome. The sixth component, and for me, it's a major component, is nutrition. How to eat and hydrate like an athlete. And our main thing we focus on in teaching these kids, again, is eating for fuel, for energy, and quicker recovery. So you do that and you're eating right. We know all of our kids are going to work hard.
Yeah.
But if that kid coming in is only getting 6 hours of sleep at night, we're finding that a 130-pound athlete is getting 50 grams of protein a day instead of 100 grams of protein a day. They're hydrating with only like 18 ounces of water for the day.
Yeah.
Their energy level is at this, even if they're giving 100% of what they can do at that level. But I've got the other kid that's getting their protein. They're getting their 100 grams of protein spread out in 5 meals a day. They're drinking half their body weight in ounces of water. They're at that high level. They're both given 100%. Who's going to get more out of that camp and that program and that set and the rep?
Yeah.
The kid that's ready to go.
It's a humongous difference. Humongous difference.
Yeah. So that's why we send this stuff out ahead of time. So day one, these kids are going to show up with that fuel chart. One day I want them to fill out. And we've heard before, the kids eat great and that's fine. And that's awesome. And if the kid comes in and they fill it out and it's perfect, you know what? They don't have to do it again the rest of the 7 weeks. And if not, but most of them, and really all of them that first week, we'll then, they learn, we make notes to it, we clip on, okay, here's what protein is, here's some things, here's where you can modify, do another one for me for next week. And then they'll do it each week, one day, each week. Some of them for 6 weeks of that 7 weeks. Most of them within 2 to 3 weeks, they've got it figured out. And they're on it. And we know right away because we see how they're doing in camp. We'll ask them in class, when they get through warm-ups, and I've got 2 guys lying down on the ground, and I've got 28 of them that are going well, I know it's not the workout was too hard. We'll ask, how many of you guys got your meals in today? How many of you did yesterday? You're hydrated. Guess whose hands aren't up? The 2 guys laying on the ground.
Yeah.
So they figure it out, and we don't embarrass them with it, but they know right away, I got to do it.
Yeah, most kids need that feedback. They're not going to learn the simple way. I know I, as a kid, had to learn through failing forward, and I think every person does, and every person fails forward in order to learn and to get better, and that's normal. But we just have to realize that don't be afraid to have that happen to your kid where they're laying down. Don't allow them to be okay with that. Say, hey, you need to get better at that aspect. If you want to really flourish or just feel better, then we got to make sure that we're taking care of our ducks right here. And no kid wants to go through and feel like that laying on the ground every single day. So generally it's a good feedback tool to allow them to understand how to resituate things so that way they can better get through and flourish.
Yeah, and the big thing is letting them know these kids, they're responsible for that. We don't let them blame mom and dad. They didn't make me breakfast this morning. They didn't anything. Man, they can make something for breakfast. They can get it in. We talk about how. We give them suggestions on how to do it. But it's about personal responsibility. And these kids will learn it. And that's one of the biggest things I think we hear more than anything else from parents afterwards. The one, they're impressed with all the results and stuff that they had. But man, when those kids are making the choices of, no, I can't do soda, I've got practice tomorrow, or tonight I'm doing this, or, I've got to get to bed because I've got to get enough sleep going into it. That's huge. And these kids learn that at a young age. They're sticking with it. I'm hearing from kids that were in my program for decades ago that are now adults with kids. And they still tell me the great things that they've learned from that aspect of it. And that's key. And we'll seek those kids that, we can talk maybe about the difference, but from Monday to Thursday, the kids are working out Monday through Thursdays. And we'll see where Mondays are having a problem. And by Thursday, they're awesome. They're doing great. And Monday, they have a problem again. They didn't all of a sudden get out of shape. What happened over the weekend? Well, they were even sleeping. They were staying up way late, sleeping in. So that day they'd get 2 meals on Saturday, 2 meals on Sunday. Monday, guess what happened? There's no fuel in the tank. Their body can't go. Now it's workout time and they can't. And they didn't just get out of shape in 3 days because all of a sudden now Tuesday they're back on. Why? They had the awakening on Monday because they didn't feel good. They couldn't react. So they got their meals in Monday the rest of the day, and Tuesday they come in. Miracle. They're feeling great and they're doing well. So those are the things we want them to learn and pick up out of it. And that's what they're going to get out of camp. So obviously, if you're in Arizona and in the Valley, we can tell you one that follows the programs that we're putting out here. Come out to us. We've got 2 different locations for camps. We've got the website below, strengthofamerica.us, and we'll have all the specific ones so you can get to our camp specifically. Bobby runs programs at Alma School in Warner, Chandler Prep, and I've got mine at the South Santan Freeway and Gilbert Road at Lincoln Prep. So there between us, we've got 4 to 5 camps going on, 5 different camps going on. So you have to find the time, the location that works for you. If you're not in our area, you're outside of the state or something else, I hope you understand what this is really laid out for. Look at all the components. If you want your athlete to have the most success, they need all 6 components of this. And without it, you're missing a wheel. And that spoke, you've got to keep into it. So, please look at that, go through it, ask questions of them. It's going to help the programs be better as well. And if not, they only offer part of it. That's what we're here for. We're glad to help or send some things out to you to outline and keep up with.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I just think as we're thinking through these aspects and what Strength of America brings to a camp, you got to understand that none of these aspects are going to be greater or worse to impact. They all have to work as a whole together. So I can't be thinking I can do this phenomenal training, strength training, power development, speed stuff, and I can just neglect thinking about evaluating, keeping track of markers, or just thinking about the nutrition, hydration, and sleep. If I start working so hard, I'm going to be impacted in some way, shape, or form if I'm not doing those other things right. And now I'm going to start to find injuries peak up, and my body and my performance is now going to decline. So we have to make sure that we're thinking about, how evaluation has its place, how speed and mechanics has its place, how plyometrics, jumping have a great place in the right fashion, understand how to absorb and produce loads. And then from there, how to react, how to change direction, and how to strength train. So with that combined with the nutrition, all that, it's thinking about the whole picture there and making sure that we're checking off more boxes to keep these kids and athletes not only safe and resilient, but as a byproduct of that, performing at a higher level. So.
Well, and that's what we help them understand too, because even you go to the gym, it's hard to tell after a while, you're getting better, what are you doing? Well, that's where our Strength of America performance chart goes from. So they're testing at the beginning of those 7 weeks and then at the end. And they're going to get a chart that does 2 things for them. It's going to show them, okay, here's where I was for my weight, my waist measurement, my vertical jump, my broad jump, my speed, all of those things, strength component. They're going to see pre and post. Did I improve on those things? Did I improve on all? The other part that we show them is, well, what was the average of those campers that were there? So you may have improved and you've done great on all these things, but was your improvement above or below the average? Because we want them to understand, hey, improving is fine, but just getting a C or a B, it's not really good. We want to be able to excel. We're an athlete. We want to get better. So as part of that, we'll see, okay, great. They've done great on their speed. Their agility was better. Their power was better. Their strength, all that was great. But you know what? My waist went up an inch, or I did this here, or here was what was going on with my weight. My weight went up, but my waist went down. So again, it shows, hey, those are good things. We put on some muscle. We lost some body fat. So it gives them some feedback to understand, well, the food's just as important. Here's what's going on. Here's your energy level. Here's how you recover. Yeah. So we want them to figure out the big picture. And the athlete that gets the big picture, puts it all together, man, they're going to have great performance, and then it's fun to go watch them when they compete in the fall and the winter.
Yeah. Awesome.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, guys, appreciate all this. Thanks for following, keeping up with it. And again, if you're in our area, check the link. We've got that below. Please share it with your coaches, your parents that are out there, others. Help them understand what they need to look for in their area to get the most out of their dollars going out in the summertime. And, again, our summer 7-week program is based, it's priced on a 6-week. Understand some of them are going to take that week off for vacation. That's great. If you don't, you're here all summer, you get that bonus week without being charged for it. So it's awesome. And this is our 30th year of Strength of America. So we got some fun things planned for you guys as well, just as a bonus for some of those as well, too. So thanks a lot for following. Appreciate it. Share it, like it. Man, let's get out and have some fun. We just opened up all the summer conditioning camps, so get those in. We will sell them out again this year, so the sooner the better. Questions with it, let us know. If you're not in the area, we'll be glad to help you still, or help your coaches on outlining a program to help your athlete.
Awesome.
All right, thanks, guys. Take care. We'll see you, and thanks for being a part of the Strength of America family.
Take care.